Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. I'm back. Sorry I was gone last week, but, life happens sometimes. But I'm back. And with me, as always, we have Brian. Hey, Brian.
Howdy.
And Mr. Heno. Hello, Heno.
Yo.
And, of course, this is Jen.
All right, really quick.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen. I want to peel the curtain back here real quick because people listening won't have seen what I just saw, but it was funny to me, which was when you said hi to Heno. Bogart's his dog Bogart is on the bed behind him and did the sup face. Like,
now he's rubbing one out.
Yeah.
I completely missed it.
Yeah. Oh, he's a showman. What can you say?
Look at that face. He knows he's suddenly like, what, is everyone looking at me?
Man.
Entertainment.
Wow.
There's nothing funnier than a dog that can't actually lick himself. They find other ways.
Yep.
They figure it out. Well, speaking of dogs, I guess I'll get this started because the rule on the show,
yes, it
you
is.
missed one, you got to go first.
Truth.
So, over the last 2 weeks that I've been busy, but I did get a new dog. So in case you happen to hear dogs in the background, yes, I do have two now. So we have lovely Otis and we have Miss Molly.
Mm-hmm.
Both are pit bulls, pit terriers. Both are pit terriers.
Right.
More pit than bull to them. And they are currently grooming each other as we speak.
Oh.
So if you hear grunting and whatnot in the background, that is what it is. I promise it's nothing.
It's, quote, grooming.
Right.
Yes, they're grooming each other. No, they're actually licking each other's ears and stuff and that type of thing. If it goes any further, which it looks like it may. What love is in the air lately? Hold on. Okay, so that's resolved. Anyway.
Can you feel the love tonight starts playing and you see them like nuzzling each other? Oh, man. This is totally not for the show, but it's just, do you remember, Jen, when we were watching Lion King the one time and I did commentary through that whole scene? It was making it sound like it was all real sultry, like I was talking for both of the lions. Sorry, that was, like I said, just
memories.
Yeah. So, all right. Anyway,
So that's one big thing. But the other big thing is I started my new job, which was
Yay.
really awesome. So I started on last Monday, and it was very interesting because whenever you start a new job, of course, you have, first day of school anxieties and that feeling of being very much alone and in a fishbowl.
right.
So, as we've talked about on the show with distorted thinking, I think that's one of the places that my distorted thinking gets me at the most.
Oh, for sure,
thinking
because
like-
you're immediately assuming what everyone else is thinking. You're mind reading, and yeah.
Yeah, so I'm picking up my clothes and going, oh my God, what are they going to think if I wear this? No one's going to care. I'm working in a warehouse. So nobody's going to, unless I'm wearing something that's completely inappropriate, which I don't wear in my personal life. So I can't imagine wearing it in my work life.
Right.
Unless I'm wearing something completely inappropriate, I'll be good.
Right.
And so I went with a simple sweater and pant combo, and it went over just fine. Nobody had any issue with it. The only thing that I had on a long necklace, which caused a couple people to kind of eyebrow a little bit because we are working in a warehouse. So
right.
Yeah. So long necklace is probably not the best choice.
Right.
For orientation, it was fine, but going forward, probably not a good choice.
Right.
Which I'm cool with. No problems. Easy fix.
Well, and it's a good rule, there's good
Absolutely.
reason for that. It's why, a lot of times in shops and stuff, it'll be like, no jewelry of any kind because, you can get a finger crushed or something like that. It's part of why my dad never wore a wedding ring because he was working on cars all the time and, he knew guys that got their fingers kind of smashed and had to have the ring cut off and it, hurt the finger and all that stuff. So yeah, good rule.
Absolutely. And even though I'm not going to be, I don't work the floor in general, but I do have to go onto the floor to do things, to pull materials from the shelves if I have to and stuff.
Right.
So I need to make sure that I am appropriate for that. So it's been interesting because I'm really working on a fine line between, because I'm considered management. So I have a black vest, and the warehouse workers have yellow vests. And so, star belly snitches and no star belly snitches and that type of thing. It's an odd juxtaposition that I've never been in before. This is just an unusual position that I've just not had to experience.
Right.
So I'm trying to find the fine balance between being an authoritative person, but also my nice, pleasant self.
Yeah.
And also balancing the fact that I'm a female in a male-dominated industry in world.
Right.
Now, there are a lot of women in the plant that I'm at, which is really great. I love seeing that. So that helps, but I'm still trying to find that balance within myself, as well as balancing my whole anxiety aspect of things, because I'm going to worry about stuff that some people may not, because that's the way my head works.
I'll tell you something, even though they were so annoying to read. But if you have the time, there's all sorts of like management books out there that are basically on that very thing, like how to, toe that line without being too far one way or the other, cause obviously you don't want to come across as some like tyrant, and to people, and yet you also can't be a doormat. So,
Right. And being, I try to avoid the whole woman versus man thing, but in this particular situation, in situations I've experienced in the past, it's very easy for a woman in an authoritative position to be labeled sorry folks, a bitch. Sorry for the language, but
right.
That's the reality of it. A guy can come across as being authoritative, a woman can come across as being a bitch, and it's sucks. It's a double standard, but it's still one that is very present and very live in our work world right now.
It definitely is. Yeah.
and it sucks.
Yep.
So, but it's something that I do have to be aware of and trying to find those balances between that.
Although, yeah, I know what you're getting at, but don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like I told you years and years ago, it's like you're there to do work. You're not there to make friends. If you become friends or whatever, that's great. Or if everybody gets along, awesome. You're not supposed to be harsh toward anyone either, but it's, if push comes to shove, you have a job to do, Yeah. And that's it.
And I do love the fact that the company, in their company goals and guidelines and statements and stuff, one of them is politic and harassment free or drama free. That's it. Politics and drama free workplace. They pride themselves on that.
Right.
And I said, that's a pretty heavy duty line to put out there. In such an industry, but I support it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fabulous if that's what they're striving for, because that's really what we all need. We all need a drama-free area, and usually religion and politics brings drama of some sort.
Well, and it's it's the workplace.
Yes.
Most of the conversations going on should be about the work, even though I know better. But, that's what is supposed to happen. And, so it's like, when people delve off into these other things, they generally become less productive,
Mm-hmm.
Why I know some places have policies where you're not allowed to talk to your coworker, unless you're in the break room or whatever, you can't on the floor, you can't bother them. To try to cut down that. And that seemed too extreme for me, but I get why they did it,
Yeah, me too. It's a bit extreme, but I understand where they were going with it. The other thing is I did go back to my psychiatrist. I had a visit with him, and it was a very interesting visit. I'm using the word interesting way a lot today. So, but I talked to him. Hold on one second.
This is where Heno and Brian fill the void of.
Sorry. Still getting used to having the two dogs.
That's one of those sections that if Brian actually edited the podcast would not appear on the podcast.
Yes. But I talked to my doctor, and he put me on 2 more meds. These are new to me. One of which is Prozac.
Mm-hmm.
Which at first I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that one? And he said, yes, it's that one, but that's okay. And here's why. I said, all right. So I guess Prozac has gotten a really bad rap, I think most people have heard stories about Prozac and how it can lead to bad things, whether it's something that can cause you to, I don't know, lose your mind and go crazy. I've heard that Prozac is something that's can be a gateway to other things. Prozac is for only extremely strong mental cases and stuff,
right.
But all of those stuff has actually been created by other manufacturers. And that's what my psychiatrist was telling me. He's like, it's a lot of it is just marketing. It's nothing but marketing and bad marketing and smear campaigns and stuff. Prozac is one of the oldest drugs for mental illness, and there's a reason why it still exists, and it's still supported by the FDA for treatment of things. So I'm like, okay.
And even if all the other stuff was true, that's where having the good support system is important, because you can tell those people, hey, if I do X, Y, and Z, make sure I know it so that I can report it, basically. And, that kind of thing. So, that's something I always do when I start something. I'll always tell someone I just had an increase in a medicine, and I told my mom, I was like, hey, if you see, because there's potential for me to be jittery again. So I was like, if you see me doing that, make sure I'm aware of it, because maybe I don't notice it, So, yeah, that's good.
Exactly. And he told me, and so I was on that one, and I'm also on one for my weight that actually takes away the cravings. Like I won't have a really strong craving for any particular foods.
Right.
So to kind of help me when cutting back and help me with overeating and making food choices. But with the Prozac, there is a chance that I could become manic easier. So that was one of the things that he told me I need to watch out for.
Sure.
So I had to have, just like you were just talking about, I had that conversation with my husband. I'm like, just so you know, these are the 2 new drugs I'm on. Yeah, I always keep them in the same place so he knows exactly where they are.
Right.
So he knows dosage and stuff like that is needed.
Real quick,
But
for
also,
for anyone listening, that is really important also.
Yeah.
Like just in case something like that. Like I have all mine in one spot. I haven't moved them in years, same thing. So.
Yes. And, and it doesn't hurt if you're on very specific medicine that may have consequences if you don't have that medicine, such as if you injure yourself and you need to have your medicine at a certain time. It's very important to carry a list in your wallet. They'll look for that. Like paramedics and people will look for that. So carry a list of the medicine that you're on and the dosage you're on, and it doesn't take up any room, doesn't hurt anything. But in the case that they need it, it's right there.
Yeah.
Because we've all heard on the TV shows, when a paramedic show up, they always say, are they on any medicine? Boom. There we go. Or keep it in your phone at least.
Yeah.
So.
That's what I did for a long time. I had it in my notes app on my phone. It was the very top one. So
that happened, and I'm trying to think of anything else. Oh, and so through work, it kind of happened really quickly, but one of the vice presidents noticed me and wanted me to go traveling for training. So next week is my first time traveling all by myself. So I've never done that before. So it's a road trip with me. So, very interesting. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. A little nervous, a little excited, all of the above, all of that good stuff. So I will have some, hopefully, positive, interesting stories to tell you on next week's podcast about Jen's travels on the road. So how about you guys? How are you guys doing?
This is the part where you add the crickets, Brian, later and during the editing process.
Right. I'm making a note right now.
Right. Yeah, write the time down. Yeah,
yep.
Right there.
Got it. Yeah. I got one of my medicines increased, and it sucks because it's Wellbutrin, and I got it increased, and it's like one of the most common side effects of Wellbutrin is like stomach upset for like a week or so. And I'm in the middle of that. So that's made me not feel like doing a whole lot because my stomach's been cramping for multiple days. And
joy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I feel it a little bit, like a little different because, the reason he switched it was because I was telling him that I just really had an overwhelmed feeling and a feeling of just meh about everything. And of course, meh is not really the goal for these medicines. That's not what we're shooting for here. So, he increased the Wellbutrin thinking, that might help because he said it's actually really good for that it helps get rid of the meh. So, hopefully it does. It's tough to tell really though, because, I've been feeling all week, so.
Sure.
But yeah, that's, that's fun. And basically if I'm not happy after this, he mentioned, that I could add another one, but I really don't want any more medicine. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I understand it's worth it if it were to get me where I'm wanting to go, or, keep me along the path, I should say, because the medicine itself won't get me there, but I just don't want any more medicine. I'm already taking 600-700 things. So, I'd really rather not take more. So I hope
I hear you.
I hope this works, you know. And so far I haven't been jittery. I noticed a little bit, but it was tolerable. And it wasn't like before to where I couldn't even like hold a pen, you know, because my hand was shaking so bad. It's just like I noticed certain things, like when I go to pick something up, my hand would shake a little bit, and that was about it. You know, I didn't lose any strength or anything like that. There was just that every once in a while I'd get something like that for like a minute, and that was gone. So, you know, that's tolerable. So, you know, the other was not, because the other, like I said before, I felt like my whole body was vibrating, which was weird. So, yeah, that was no good, because I was just running on high on anxiety, you know. But that was something he told me to watch out for with this too, which kind of sucks because my anxiety's been running high the last few months. And then when he put me on higher Wellbutrin, there's a chance, you know, again, a common side effect of Wellbutrin, because it tends to kind of up your energy, is higher levels of anxiety. So luckily it has not seemed to have done that for me. So that's, the real negative side effects I've pretty much avoided. The nausea one I think is super common. So, you know, and honestly that's tolerable as long as it goes away in a week. I was on a cholesterol medicine before that was that way. Every time I took it, it would upset my stomach. And finally I was just like, I can't keep taking this. This sucks. You know, like, because every time, you know, and he's like, oh, well, you know, my doctor's like, yeah, just take it at dinner or whatever. And I was like, okay. So I tried that for like a week, and I was like, yeah, this didn't work either. Like, time to switch medicines, you know? So it's like, listen, I want to get my cholesterol down, but I don't want to not be able to go anywhere because I feel like I can't, you know?
Right. That's just going to add a whole other set of issues.
Yeah, that's quality of life. Yeah. So, So yeah, I haven't really done a whole lot other than that over the last week, because, like I said, I haven't really felt like doing much. So, and I had a brutal migraine for 3.5 days. So yeah, and it was like the first day I didn't get out of bed until 10:30 at night, because the idea of walking out into the other room where there were lights was just like, nope. So, like, the light on my cable box was too much. I actually had to get up and turn it the other way. Yeah. And it's just this little tiny LED, you know.
Yeah.
But it was too much. So, yeah, that was pretty awful. But luckily it seems to be gone. So, hopefully stay away for a while. Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. I think that's it for me. I can't think of anything else. So,
how about you, Hannah?
Well, I have had a pretty productive week after last week's episode, and part of it is because of my buddy Andrew, who I'll give the Andy update. It's like my new spot. So after we got done, it was the next day on Monday, he sends me a text message saying, I have gotten more done today than I have gotten, you know, done in weeks and stuff. And he was just really appreciative of us having a conversation. And I just kept saying, you know, that's what this is about. That's, you know, it's team effort, you know, it has nothing to do with me, you know, it really is. But it got me really thinking of like, okay, well, what can I do? And so I decided right then and there that I'm like, okay, I'm setting an intention for the week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I am going to do something to help with the clutter in my house. And I kept it really simple. I said, I'm going to go and grab one box of crap, basically.
Right.
Either the garage or the basement. And I'm going to either put it where it belongs or throw it in the garbage, meaning that I'm going to go through it, and if there's things in there that need to go someplace else, they go someplace else, and if not, they go into the trash.
Right.
And the first thing I did on Monday night was I went into my garage, and I was like, I can't even walk in here without fear of injury. Yeah. And I was like, you know, let's go. So, you know, there's and I sent you guys pictures of it, but it's like, okay, there's hooks on the ceiling for bicycles, and the bicycles are on the floor. Okay, let's start there. You know, and it was really like that. And 45 minutes later, I had an open space in the middle, and I could get to everything. And stuff that I wasn't using, I moved way off the side, and I stuck stuff up into the rafters, and I was like, good enough. And I walked out, and it felt really good. And then Wednesday came along, and it's like, okay, basement. Walked down the basement, same thing, just boxes from shipping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And went through all of those, and once again, ended up with a nice space in the middle. And then Friday came around, and I wasn't so up for Friday cleanup work. I went and saw a movie instead. But Saturday, I have an amplifier that's been in my basement now, not working for over a year, and I have the tubes for it, and I just needed to take it apart again, and I had literally fixed it. I put it back together, and it didn't work, and so I was like, screw you. Like I just didn't even want to deal with it again. And so I knew exactly what was wrong with it. I just didn't want to open it up again.
Right.
So I did, and I fixed it, and it didn't quite 100% work, but it worked good enough. And because it was something I want to sell, and it has this amp has this odd thing. It's like just about when I'm about ready to sell it, something goes wrong with it. And so I finally decided that it does not want to be sold.
Right.
So it should get used in some way, shape, or form. And I found a use for it. So I fixed it up, and it is no longer in the basement. It is back in the rig where it can be used for recording and stuff. So
I figured it'd be an end table or something.
Just threw a table.
Yeah, just threw a sheet over it. Yeah.
Because hey, it says Marshall on it.
Right.
I mean, but it was great to do that, and then to one of the things that I kept chatting with Andrew about was, it's about being accountable, and setting intentions and then going through with them, which can be so ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
And we talked about it last week, and it was great to just put it into effect and then have somebody to have feedback with. And he had some great news by the end of the week. He got a new job. It's a job that is not in manufacturing with, I will, use the term that they use on Snake Oil Comics, with a bunch of Clydes. Nothing against blue collar people, but
right.
He's not.
Yeah.
And so this is with a medical, like a medical company, which, it's like you dress up a little bit when you go into work. I was like, yes, finally, that it's just do you know, not every, yeah.
I was going to say real quick, sorry. I had a friend that, basically he just would always take, and again, there's nothing wrong with any job, if it's an honest day pay, whatever, but he would take jobs that were just there, and a lot of them were like grunt work, just real heavy, like laborious type things. Laborious, laborious, whatever. But anyway, different times other jobs would come up where it was like a step up and stuff, and we'd always be like, well, go for it, man, and you always would have an excuse. And the one day I talked to him, and I was like, dude, it's not about this other stuff or what. I was like, it's about just wanting better for yourself, or wanting the best for yourself that's out there. It's like, if there's potential for something better, don't settle necessarily. If you're not happy, if you're happy, whatever, that's, but don't complain and be unhappy when there are better options and you just refuse to take them,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do really think that some people, I was talking to Sharon about this weekend, about some people can adapt, and but not everybody can. And like, she has some friends that they just don't adapt. And what's interesting is those particular friends, like, so she has mutual friends, but those friends don't get along with each other. Because and if you look at their personalities, they're very similar. So it's like, okay, I can see why they don't get along with each other.
Yeah.
And it's not a judgment. It's just kind of they have a certain way of living their life, and we attract people that work with our with what we have to offer and what we have and give and take and all that stuff.
Right.
And like, I've always been easily adaptable, but like the first time I came to Idaho, and was working, with some construction guys, the first question is, so what do those earrings mean? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I can't even, I have never heard that before.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
wait, never mind. You're from California. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So California, when I was 14 or 13 was the first time I saw a guy with earrings,
Yeah.
and I asked what that meant, what they meant.
Yeah.
And I still remember the response, and it was a response I gave this guy. It's like,
None yet?
it's like, I'm a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
They're ornaments.
Right.
See, they hang.
Right.
Shiny.
Yep.
But it was just that idea that, if you don't fit, don't try, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get by.
You're right. Yeah.
Right.
But if you're better, and so what was great is in the process of this whole week of going back and forth, he came up with a brilliant idea, which I completely supported. I was like, this is excellent. And again, it's like looking for what are my strengths. And because when we get stuck in ruts, it's sometimes hard to see, to think outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're stuck in a rut, I know for myself, when it's happened, I tend to go to the familiar rather than the adventurous.
Mm-hmm. You just described depression.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Perfect.
Yeah, it really is. You
Yeah.
get in a rut and you choose safety versus the risk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally heard some risk, and I was like, awesome, and so it's been really exciting. I've had a great week because of it. It's got me, it's what I really enjoy. And Sharon took me out for breakfast on Saturday for my birthday, because it's the first time we've had a chance to really do anything together. And we were talking about those kind of things, we were talking about why, like, we were both saying that we both haven't been to meetings very much recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of reiterated, I'm getting more out of the crazy life than I get out of meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean I have something to give and I have something to offer with my meetings. But the reality is I'm good on that front.
Yeah.
I don't get to my end of the day anymore and like, why did I say this, or why? And I'm not worried about going out and drinking because my attitude is poor, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I need to get into these kind of things where, how can I make my life easier? How can I get out of my own way and feel better? Because that's really what it comes down to. And because for the most part, I can go around my house and do what I need to do without ever dealing with some of the clutter. But then when I do need something and I get in there and I just go, and it's like, oh, wow. And what do? I walk away from it. I don't fix it. I just walk away from it and ignore it. And so this week got me to go in and say, no, let's do something about it. So the next time we go down there, we don't have that feeling of, because I get this like kind of anxiety feeling, this like claustrophobic, where I'm like, why is everything like this?
Yeah.
Because it's your own darn fault.
Right. Yeah. Like me, I'd feel like a guilt of not, because I haven't taken care of it. It's like, I know that needs to be done, but I just, the sky was blue today, so I couldn't do it. Yeah. So, yeah.
So I've the other thing I wanted to just quickly mention is like over this last week, I've heard little mentions of people who have listened to our podcast, but they never like publicly ever mentioned that they listen to our podcast. And I just wanted to say thank you to those people, because it means a lot to me to know, because they're friends. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say that I heard you.
Even
That's awesome. Thank you.
Even though you're just some guy.
Yes.
Just some guy out there. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Well, something I want to talk about this week that's kind of popped up a few times throughout my week so far is using the right words for the right situation, and also the style of how you say things. They kind of go hand in hand, because how often I've heard this comment very, very, very often throughout my life is, I don't sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
You know, I personally do. It's my choice that I make and how I choose to speak. Sometimes I sugarcoat too much, and that gets irritating to some people because they want, get to the point.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say? Just spit it out.
Yep.
Which, granted, all valid feedback. Sorry.
Dog moment.
Yep.
Dog moment. But there's also circumstances where people are communicating with me and they're so direct that I get distracted by either the tone of the comments or the directness of the comment puts me off guard, and I can't hear what they're truly trying to tell me because of the style and the way they're communicating with me.
Right. Here's the way I always looked at this kind of thing is take story problems, that you go through in math, right? Well, the way I approach them is I read the question, then I look for the answer in the paragraph. I don't bother reading the whole paragraph. I just look for the answer. And there are a lot of people who that does not work for. Like to me, it's get to the point. The point is the question. Now here's your answer. Boom, done, on to the next one. There are some people that kind of need to read the setup because they visualize it while they do it or something, and that's how it works for them. And I think this is really similar in that aspect, like you said, with the sugarcoating versus the directness. Is just, again, I'm one of those people that I would prefer people just, this is what I need from you. No games, no nothing, just boom, here it is, and I can deal with it, And
it's also in the words that you choose, because sometimes when you're, and I find that happens a lot more when you're more direct, is that you speak off the cuff. You speak what's on the top of your head and you just boom, you out. To like it or not, take it or leave it. This is how I feel. Boom. Drop the mic and walk away.
Right.
And when you do that, sometimes what you're saying doesn't necessarily match up with what you're meaning. And I've seen that a few times throughout my week in circumstances where people will say things and it's like, well, no, if I take you at what you just said, this is what I'm saying, boom. If I take you at your word, exactly what you said verbatim, and do that, that's not what you really want. You really want me to do a variation of that. Does that make sense to you guys? All right. I'm just making sure I wasn't being too vague. Because no examples are popping forward in my head right now to give a specific example about this.
Wow.
So, or else I would give one. But I don't know.
Well, it's
what do you guys?
A lot of people.
You guys are more direct than I am.
Yeah, a lot of people will drop hints about what they want instead of just telling you what they want. And I don't mean this in the direct sense. I just mean it's just they'll drop hints for weeks and then kind of be upset that you didn't do what they wanted you to do. And you're like, you never said to do that. Well, I've been telling you for 2 weeks. You have? No, you haven't. And that's kind of the thing. And again, this isn't about being direct or not. That's just being vague. And when you're vague, people don't people like direction, especially at work. If you're at work and you've got people just vague all around you, it's frustrating because you don't really know what you're supposed to do,
Exactly. And that's, so there's a few things in here. So, the first thing, of course, I want us to touch on is I'm going off the cuff here, folks. Sorry if I'm a little delayed here, but the first thing that I want to touch on is direct versus indirect communication. So direct is very to the point. This is what I need. This is what I want. Boom. And I know you and Henno, Brian and Henno, you guys both much more seem to come across to me anyways, much more to the point, and boom, let's get the communication off. Am I on point or off point?
You're right with me. And it goes back to what I said before. It's just, I just don't like pretension. I don't like, I just, like I said, if you don't like me, you walk up to me and say, I don't like you, I'd be like, all right, at least I know where I stand, kind of a situation. So I can deal with it. I'm a big boy, I can handle the emotions that come along with it. I'll turn around and, sob for a couple minutes and that'll be fine. But there is also that difference in that, and again, after reading management books especially, you learn that when you're trying to, like, if you're managing people, you can't use the same technique on everybody. And it works that way no matter what it is you're trying to get. The same technique will not work on everyone. You've got to alter it to the person. Because like you said, Jen, you're not a big fan of people being completely direct to you. You'd prefer that they, aren't.
Just to an extent.
Yeah.
Let
me rephrase.
Need to do something, I need it straight.
Yeah, So when, when people react that way, like a lot of people will go on the defensive if someone is, direct. And part of that's because of the person as well, because there's a difference between being direct. Like I'll sit down, I'll talk with you and I'll just be like, here's how it is. Without yelling, screaming, anything like that. But if I'm basically like, yo, that's how I feel and drop the mic, I've now become an aggressor, and I think there's a big difference in the two of that. You can sit someone down and say, hey, and be firm with them, versus, setting them on the defensive, because once they're on the defensive, they're not listening to you anymore,
Right.
So it's just not going to work for anybody. So that's why I said there's that real fine line there of being direct versus being a jerk, basically, Yeah.
What do you think, Hanno?
Yeah, that's like, I talk about this mostly when it comes to anytime where I'm working, quote unquote working, and whether it's actually at my job, but I also include like my band. And I'm not talking about rehearsals. I'm talking about when we're at a gig and doing stuff. I don't please and thank you. And I do it at work when it's the right time and place, because I want to show my respect for people.
Right.
And that I'm asking them if they can do something, and I do it in a way, and I say thank you afterwards like that. But when it comes down to when it's crunch time and like there's a leak or something like that, I tell you to go get something.
Right.
I don't say, will you please go get it?
Yeah.
I just say, go get this. And at the end, we can deal with that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that to me is being direct. Now, one of the things that I do have and a lot of it has to do with, this podcast that we do and becoming aware of how the best way to phrase things, and looking at distorted thinking and looking at people, the way people express themselves. And I'll just use a simple example. It's like when getting into let's just call it a disagreement with somebody, where it can be an emotional level. And to talk about my feelings, how I feel, or how I feel was treated, versus saying you made me feel like this.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And this is where it's important. Learning this has changed things to me completely. So when I hear somebody start on that other way, and they're saying, I'm just calling it like it is, I'm being direct, and it's like, no, you're not. You're actually being indirect. For me to talk about how something makes me feel, no one can deny my feelings.
Right. Right. So like in my scenario earlier, when I said if someone just walked up to me and was like, I don't like you, they're being aggressive, but at the same time, they're being very direct. This is how I feel about you. Yep. And I go, okay, cause that's how you feel. I could probably, I can try to change that mentality, but that's your feeling. Okay.
Yeah. But if this person comes up to me and says, you made me feel like this, it's like, no, I didn't. I can't make you feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is passive aggressive behavior. That's not owning one's own part in the situation.
Right.
And I think that's where this thing gets, because I've noticed that the people that call themselves the most direct tend to also exercise the most distorted thinking.
Yeah, there is that. Because they think they're being, it's because they think they're being logical. And I can speak firsthand on it.
And now, and because the reason I learned this is because I wanted to change how I communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, you may sit there and say, well, isn't that all, feel good and that,
I'm not going to sugarcoat this for anybody.
Right?
Yeah.
You're talking about your feelings. And it's like, no, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about me and my truth in a way that you can't deny me.
Mm-hmm. And
you also can't distort this conversation. You can't change it. You can't make it about something else.
Right.
And that's the part where it's like, to me, it comes down to, I've put a lot of work into not being passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And people and this is just kind of a paradox. The people that talk about, I'm not sugarcoating this, can be just as passive aggressive as somebody who is honestly has a difficult time expressing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the real key is for myself, when I come across someone that is honestly having a difficult time expressing their feelings and they really want to, I think it's on me to help them. Mm-hmm. Especially if they're not being aggressive about it.
Yeah.
Now, if they are being aggressive about it, they end up being what we call petty tyrants at work. They're people with very low self-esteem who use their position as leverage, and they do it with their words.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they do it in a way that this gets very confusing. And I think the best thing that we can do, at least for myself, what I've learned is when I'm confronted with a petty tyrant or someone who does these things, is to be very clear in my own speech and how I react and respond, and not to fall into their game.
That's a huge key. Is one of the things is like, if you haven't done this as a person, you should, because it will really help you, which is look up passive aggression on Google and look for different examples, definitions, that kind of stuff for it. Because then what happens is you start seeing it when people are using it on you, and it really helps to sidestep those pitfalls. Because it really is. That's what passive aggression is. They're setting a trap. They're waiting for you to step on it, and then boom, they drop the hammer on you. And, or they'll just pretend something's one thing and, like, oh, it's fine. And then complain about you or whatever. But, like I said, if you know what you're looking for, it can help a whole lot. And honestly, I've gotten to a point where over the years, I kind of call people on it now because I hate it so much.
I can't help it.
Yeah, it's a form of mental abuse is what it is in a lot of cases. Not always, but in a lot of cases. Where someone will just keep using it over and over and over to badger someone. So I just don't have the tolerance for it anymore. It's like, don't,
I try to draw the line when someone, and because all I'm not going to change how a person speaks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change how a person expresses themselves. Mm-hmm. There is a point where I have chosen to have acceptance in my life, and acceptance is about accepting people for who they are and their strengths as well as their limitations, and to work within those kind of rules. The greatest gift I've had is that I will never change somebody, so I'm not going to even try. However, I'm not going to let anybody tell me how I think or how I feel, or try to make something out that isn't the truth about me, because I will call people on that.
Yeah.
I will say, no, you do not get to tell me how I feel.
Right.
Yes. And that's correct. And that, brings us to the second one, which you already kind of touched on it, Hanno, which is the choosing your words. Say what you mean, but I think it's important that you don't want to be passive aggressive. You don't want to be, unintentionally vague. Say what you mean to a certain extent, but also know your audience and adjust to what your audience can hear.
Yeah.
Such as you will never, if someone's wearing an inappropriate uniform, shall we say, some people would walk up to him and go, "Oh, that's an interesting look for the day."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Passive aggressive.
They're letting everyone wear T-shirts now.
Passive aggressive. Super passive aggressive.
Yep.
Walking up going, "What the hell are you wearing?" Okay. Too direct. Like too on the point. Too direct. Too passive aggressive.
I just blow an air horn
happy in the middle.
And then report them.
Yeah. So. Happy in the middle. Either report, such as, avoid the whole situation, go to the manager, or say, I don't think we're supposed to be wearing T-shirts today. Is there something, something different that maybe I missed?
Yeah.
Something like that, which is somewhat direct, but also somewhat passive aggressive. That's more my style. I kind of go for a middle ground.
Right.
I go right to what the employee manual says or our policy says. Because that's how it's been used with me. We don't wear tank tops, T-shirts only.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I prefer that. I prefer someone just comes out and says, "We have a dress code here. This is what it is."
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that example. The worst though is when it's a coworker who wants to play control monitor or employee policy monitor.
Right.
And it's like, that's where, it's one thing if it's like your boss, your supervisor or someone like that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And if somebody does come up to me and does the whole beat around the bush thing, I like to help them out. If they start doing I just say, "What's the policy?" Just let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. If I was a manager, I would handle it differently than a coworker.
Yes.
Because if it's a manager, I would say, the policy is such and such and such. But as a coworker, sometimes I don't know.
Unless
maybe something changed.
Yeah, and I mean, unless you run into a scenario like I did when I worked at Hollywood Video, where the girl I was working with decided not to wear a bra to work, and we wore tuxedo shirts, which for anyone who doesn't know are very not see-through, but kind of see-through. So you could tell she wasn't wearing a bra. And, I was like, I don't know how to handle this. So I went and called my DM. I was like, and he was like, I'll handle it. I'm like, good, cause.
Right. I've also had to have the conversation from a manager to an employee. A woman wore red underwear under white smocks to a nursing home. So
it's a good
didn't
look.
come across as too appropriate. It was pretty underwear, as she pointed out, to which I said, I'm glad that it was very pretty underwear.
Was that an attempt at defense?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So as long as they're pretty underwear, you can wear them. Okay, I get you. Right.
Yes, attractive underwear.
Right.
But I appreciate that they're pretty, but not for the world to see on my time.
Right.
Your time, you can choose what you want to do.
Right.
But yes, so it's finding that, but as we've just kind of even talked about, there's different approaches that you can take. Different people receive things differently and want to receive things differently. Mm-hmm. So it's finding that right balance can be tricky, can be very tricky.
Yeah.
And I like it when like I said, I've started to enjoy helping people out when they're having a difficult time expressing themselves to me. Yeah. Especially when it's something when they're actually asking, they would like me to change my behavior. Mm-hmm. Like there's something about that they would like to see me do for me, to do differently. And the one thing I've gotten over is this idea that a correction is a smackdown. It's not. It's an opportunity. Because I'm not getting fired.
Yeah.
If I'm not getting written up, then I've been requested to do something differently.
Yeah.
And so I try to take that attitude, and I try to take that attitude in my household too. That it's like, oh, okay, would you like to see me try to do something different? Okay, just go ahead and say it. And if they're beating around the bush with it, I say, hey, what are you trying to say? What's the policy? What can I do what can I do to make your life easier?
Right.
That's being of service, right?
Mm.
Now, on the other hand, back to the concept of words, there's one thing that I have become very pedantic about because of this show is when people start using words that refer to people's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes.
When they start using the term OCD, and it's like, yeah, no, you're not OCD. I know someone that literally suffers from that illness, and that is being disrespectful.
Yeah.
You would not walk into the place where there's a room full of mentally handicapped people and call someone a retard. You wouldn't do that. So then why would you use someone's illness, a legitimate illness, to describe your personal quirks?
Right. People do that to me all the time.
You know what? Do you know why they do it? Is because even though mental illness is still not full on accepted as whatever, but it's more accepted than if you're just a jerk about something or, like really particular about things, somebody'd rather say they're OCD because people go, oh, instead of if you just go, I'm really, really, anal about, things being organized and people will be like, this guy, like that's what'll happen though. If you say OCD, they'll go, oh, that sucks,
Well, that's, I actually have corrected people before and they continue to do the same thing with bipolar.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, she's so bipolar.
Ugh.
I'm like, no, I'm bipolar. She has not been diagnosed as bipolar.
Yeah. Well,
So
the
there's a
other thing is
difference.
too, is usually when they're citing an example of bipolar, it's mood swings. And it's like, that isn't how it works in everyone. Some people don't have mood swings like you get manic,
Yeah. This is not just me having a bad day.
Yeah.
Once in a while. This is,
Right.
it's severe mood swings.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very polar opposites. Hence
Exactly.
bipolar.
Yeah.
Polar opposite reactions to things. And I've corrected people and they've continued to do it to my face. Right in front of me, they're like, oh, she's just so bipolar. And I'm like, no, you guys, I already told you.
Yeah.
She's not been diagnosed bipolar. She is just moody.
Yeah.
It's like, so we can't say that she's bipolar.
Right.
Like, oh, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well,
here's the thing though,
of
that's kind of a form of harassment,
yeah.
it's
So
part of the distorted thinking.
Yeah.
It's objectification, and it really bugs me
Yeah.
when someone's having a bad day and you say, "Oh, you're being you're hysterical."
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
And now that women used to be called hysterical,
Uh-huh.
All
and
right.
they were put into they were forms of mental institutions, although they were called sanitariums at the
Right.
time.
Yes.
Yep.
But that's because they are hysterical. And what it is, it's objectification. It's objectifying people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not looking at someone for who they are. And
Right.
that's where, like I said, I can be a little, about this, but it starts to bother me after a while, especially when someone starts using ethnic terminology.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm just like, no, stop right now. Because
Yeah.
you're just objective. You're not looking at people as human beings.
Right.
You're putting them into categories because of your own personal issues.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing with the mental illness words and stuff is there's a lot of things in mental illness that have heavy overlaps with something else or mirror each other very closely. Yes. So even if you were bipolar, maybe, or you're not bipolar, but maybe you're something else in the that range. And, so if nothing else in that, I mean, that's like using a broad term for one ethnic group, like calling anyone from Asia Chinese, that's essentially what you're doing. Oh, you behave like this, you're bipolar. It's like, no, actually I'm not. Depression it causes mood swings.
Oh yeah. Depression is all the time people use that. Oh, it's just depressed.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't understand the difference.
Yeah.
But I do have help for us though.
Good.
So,
move us along.
when when you have issues with communication and you don't think it's going through, there's actually a technique called mirroring that is very, very, very helpful that I found in my life, but I also wanted to let you guys know about it. How I heard about this is actually from HGTV. I was watching Property Brothers, and a couple were on there, a gay couple it happened to be, and one of them was a psychiatrist. And he was explaining what mirroring is for his partner, how they can understand each other better. What it is somebody says something, and you mirror back what you heard to them and ask them if this is correct.
Yes.
That's interesting.
You know, they do the same thing back to you.
Mhm.
Yes.
You're like, okay, what I'm hearing is that you have an exception to my outfit. Is that correct? And you'd like me to
Exactly.
change it. Is that what you're saying?
Wow.
Yep.
To which they can say yes or no.
It's a 2-person game of telephone.
Yes. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because so often what we say is not what they hear, and what they hear is not what we say and what we meant to say.
Yeah.
So that way it is exactly right. 2-person game of telephone.
It is such an effective technique and is very important. This week we're doing I usually do the safety meetings, and my GM is bringing in something on customer service, and he was talking about listening, and it was missing out of this list, which was repeat back what you just heard. So am I correct in that you would like this is what the problem is?
Mm-hmm.
Just repeating what they said. Not only does it show that you actually listen to them, it gives a certain amount of respect, it keeps you out of judgment right away and reaction.
Yeah.
It gives you an opportunity to act rather than react by repeating what the person says. And also for me, myself, when I use these techniques, because my history is I'm waiting for my turn in a conversation.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying so hard to break that. And one of the ways to do that and to practice active listening is to repeat back what they said. And it gives me a little bit of time to then not react and not quickly rush to judgment.
Right. As we talked about I can't remember which episode it was now, but when I talked with my therapist about basically when something happens and how you react to it, she was like, anything that can give you a few seconds to process. Yep. She's like, will make a huge difference. She's like, if you catch yourself like going down the, gonna yell at someone path, but you catch yourself and go, okay, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this, and like you said, that kind of gives you the same thing. If you repeat it back, it gives you that quick, you pump the brakes a little bit there maybe, and that's enough to go, I don't want to do that,
Yep, I've heard that called checking for understanding. It's like, checking for clarification or checking for understanding. You want to check with the person to make sure that you're clear as to what their needs are and what they're trying to express to you. And so I saw it, and it was a kind of an odd, funny way to see something like that and to hear about something like that. But it just spoke volumes to me, and it really seemed to help me to kind of what you guys were even just talking about, pump the brakes, to take a step back, to, instead of and be more active in my listening with people. And, so that was a nice little combination of different things that kind of all rolled up into one happy thing called mirroring.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And that goes with that idea of, it puts an end to passive aggressiveness real quick.
It does.
And you're helping somebody. And that's why not everybody likes, I shouldn't say, nobody likes conflict. But some people view anytime they need to, my GM is just famous for this. He doesn't want to have to deal with stuff. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
You bring up a problem between two employees, and it's like his first reaction is not, okay, I'll take care of this. it is always because he really doesn't like conflict at all.
Wow.
And so when I experience him needing to do a correction, I find myself wanting to help him in a way, because he does do this kind of dance around the point thing. And I'm trying to be understanding that this is not this. He doesn't like doing this.
Yeah.
He's not going to be direct. He's just not. And so it's it's frustrating and it's annoying, and he comes across as my dad, more times than not.
I totally get you. I've had managers like that too. Yeah.
But because I understand him, I just sit there patiently and quietly and wait, and then I can respond. Where he can ask me a direct question, but instead of asking me a direct question, it's like this 3-sentence word,
right?
Where there's suggestions mixed in there, and it's like you haven't even asked me if there's a problem with this, and you've already offered the solution,
right?
Because you've already. So here's what. Do you know the person that comes to you to talk to you about a problem and already has your solution for you?
Yes.
You know that person?
Mm-hmm.
That's who he is.
Yeah.
And it bugs me like no other. And I have to watch myself when I do that.
Yeah.
Because what that means is I've been in my head way too much. I've already planned out the conversation ahead of time. I've already thought about every path that it could go to and come up with all the solutions. I have a lot of friends that are like this. They will walk, and because I know this because they tell me about it.
Yeah.
Where they walk in and they say, "Well, this is a problem, and these are the ways that I think we can take care of it." And when someone comes up to me with that, I said, "You've come up with this whole conversation on your own?
Yeah.
Maybe I might have some input in this.
Right.
Can we go through it again?" But I already did. No, I would like to be included part of this conversation, not be the result of the talk in your head.
Yeah.
And it's everything that we've been, like you talked about, Brian, is the more you learn this stuff, the more you start seeing it in others.
It is.
And because this is from working on myself.
Yeah. I mentioned that when I first got the distorted thinking, sheets is how much after reading those and really understanding what they are, when you start looking around you, you're like, wow, and like how many people are doing this and probably don't realize they're doing a lot of it, and not even just people that are, that have depression or anything like that. Just people just do some of that stuff without thinking.
It's a lifetime of practice. And it's usually something that it's either something we learned from our parents or we've engaged with people all the time. I put it in same thing with sarcasm.
Yeah.
You have to practice sarcasm all the time for it to become your response du jour. That's just all there is. And if you stop practicing it, it's not it won't come out as often.
Yeah.
Same
with
I know that from my own experience.
Cursing or anything like that. If you don't put it into practice, it'll go away from your lexicon, your speaking.
And same thing with these conversation techniques. And as my therapist, reminded me early on, and I didn't want to hear this, is they don't have to change.
Yeah.
Right.
And, because I would sit there, well, they should do that. No, they don't have to. And they can go the rest of their life communicating the way they communicate.
Yeah.
And it's none of your darn business.
Yeah.
And I didn't like hearing that, but it taught me about acceptance and accepting people for who they are and making the decisions based on who they are, not who I hope they would be.
Right. Well, and the other thing too is it really it gives you a good point for you to make your changes to yourself, and that is all you can control. So, if someone is doing something you absolutely hate and you're like, well, they should do this, and it's like, well, they're not going to. This is what they've done for 30 years. They're not going to change. It's like, can you tolerate it? If you can't, look at your choices, and then it goes down that road. And that's really what it comes down to with this stuff, is that it's, you can't change some stuff, but you can remove yourself from environments. You can not be friends with someone anymore. You can whatever, you can alter your part in it and, whatever. And it sucks sometimes because you realize you have to take someone out of your life or whatever. And, that's generally not fun. So a lot of people don't want to do that, but that is really the only thing you can do. And then if the person does change and comes back to you later, or, you run into each other later and they're not that person anymore, then, perhaps you can pick back up with them or whatever, but you can't. It's just such a futile effort trying to constantly be right and constantly change people. It's exhausting.
Yep. And you can't. Everybody's entitled to be their own person and to do their own thing. Mm-hmm. Just because you may feel you have the right answer for them doesn't mean that they agree and they're going to go and follow through with what you want them to do.
Perfect example is parents. How many parents know better than their kids? The kids never listen. Yep. Generation after generation after generation. You can have 40 years of reason, like, this is why you shouldn't do this, because we have all of this, and people will be like, nah, I won't, that one's not going to happen to me. And walk right into it.
Completely different situation.
Yep.
I don't know, guys. With that being said, what do you think? Are we good?
Yeah, I think so.
Hash that out.
Yeah.
We hashed it out.
Really quick, I want to mention to anyone who's listening to this, we actually did an episode a long time ago. I believe it was called Choose Your Words or something to that effect, where we talk more about the situation that Henno was talking about with misusing terminologies for mental illness and different stuff like that, and how it actually diminishes the progress that mental health advocates have made. So, it's a good one to maybe go back and listen to if you haven't already heard it.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess with that, folks, if you want to continue the conversation with us, you know what to do. You can reach out to me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with the G. You can also shoot us an email at the Crazy Life Podcast. The Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.com.
Podcast.
Podcast.
Or you can reach us at our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. And you, Henno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno. Find me on Facebook, Henno Hater. And you can probably find me on every single type of social media that is out there.
Nice. And you, Brian?
You can also find the show on Facebook at facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast. You can find the show on Twitter also at the Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. And that show is not safe for work. Yeah, I'm not going to give my blog address, even though I've got one that I'm going to be writing here within the next couple days. So look for that if you want to.
Absolutely look for that, and you'll be posting it on Facebook, right?
Usually I do. Yeah, a lot of it depends on what the subject is and how personal it is.
Fair enough.
Because there are some things that Facebook is not my favorite format. So, yeah. Anyway, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. Is that it? That's it. Yep. If you'd like to help the show out, we'd greatly appreciate it if you're using Apple Podcasts to rate, review, and subscribe if you have not already. If you're using Spotify or Stitcher, please use the like or share options, because that'll help us in the searches. Oh boy, I was doing so well too. I was doing really good. Normally I've already had like 3 brain hiccups before now. Oh well. We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals, or, good speakers. But, if you need help, please reach out and get help. There are tons of people out there willing to help. You just got to reach out to them. We've got links over on the Facebook page, or, hit any one of us up, or go to like NAMI.org. There's all sorts of stuff on the internet if you're looking for something. If you're in a crisis, call the suicide prevention hotline number, or, call someone so you're not alone, to come over, and whatnot. So, and if you feel as though you may harm yourself or others, please reach out to somebody, a friend, call 911, just whatever you need to do at the time, to not be alone and to try to stop before something drastic happens. If you find yourself writing a suicide note, or how you would do, how you would go through with something, that's the time to, if you catch yourself at that point, you need to ask for help, because, so nothing drastic happens. And then last, reach out to somebody, because as Henno now for 2 weeks has shown us, he didn't reach out, but he was able, he decided to answer the phone. So I guess it's not just reach out, but pick up, as Henno said last week, because you never know when someone might be reaching out to you. But also, reach out to people that you think, either you haven't talked to in a long time, or that has issues with mental illness or whatever, and just, make sure they're okay. Because you can make their day or week, or, you may save their life. You just never know.
Absolutely. And with that, trying to think how I want to close. With that, folks, wiggle your toes. Try to give a smile once in a while when you feel it, not because you have to. I'll put that out there. And enjoy yourself. Have a good week.